just wanting a peaceful weekend on his land. He was arrested by a HOA queen, but when he pulled out a piece of paper, both the police and the queen were stunned. What shocking truth is about to be revealed? Don't miss what happens next. You won't believe it. What the hell are you doing on my property? The acidic, ear-splitting shriek tore through the silent air. David jolted, the greasy chicken leg nearly flying from his hand into the fire. Damn it. He had managed to get exactly 15 minutes of peace after a full day of wrestling with paperwork and a 6-hour drive from hell. He spun around, and a slow burn of anger began to smolder inside him. Standing there was a woman who screamed, "Bad day," just by existing. Her blonde hair was piled high in an outdated beehive, her face caked with a ton of makeup, and she was wearing a tacky pink pantsuit with high heels that were sinking deep into the soft earth, a peacock that had strayed into a chicken coop. David knew exactly what she was, a classic Karen, the plague of American suburbia. "You've got to be kidding me," David muttered, biting back a curse. He'd heard his father complain endlessly about the bossy Homeowners Association HOA from the luxury development across the lake. A bunch of nouveau-riche snobs who bought a plot of land and crowned themselves king and queen of the entire region. The woman curled her lip, a sneer worse than a slap. "Kidding you? Think I have time to kid around with a vagrant like you? I'm Karen Greaves. From the HOA board. This lakefront is our property. Now, you have exactly 5 minutes to pack up this pile of garbage and get the hell out of my sight." Now David took a deep breath. The fresh mountain air now smelled thick with entitlement. He glanced out at the water, where his best friend, Mark, was still blissfully paddling his kayak in the middle of the lake, a small, dark shape, blessedly unaware of this cheap drama. "Listen, ma'am," David started, trying to keep his voice from turning into a growl. "I think there's been a massive misunderstanding here. This land, including the very patch of shoreline you're standing on, belongs to the Marshall farm, and I am David Marshall." Karen burst out laughing. It was a shrill, high-pitched cackle, as if she'd just heard the world's lamest joke. "Marshall, that rundown farm. Oh, honey, that's ancient history. We're the ones who maintain and protect this place. And you," she jabbed a red-nailed finger at his face, "are just a drifter, a freeloader, trespassing on private property. Do you have enough wrinkles in that brain of yours to understand that? You idiot." Snap, the thread of patience in David's mind tore apart. That was it. It was over. His plan for a quiet weekend to honor his late father had just been unceremoniously thrown in the trash by this woman. Her idiotic confidence was astounding. She genuinely believed the sun rose and set on her command. "I'm not going to repeat myself." David stood up straight, his tall frame blocking the last of the evening sun. His voice was now completely devoid of emotion. "As cold as the lake in winter, you are on my property. Get out, before I lose what's left of my self-control." "You dare," Karen's eyes bulged, bloodshot with rage. "You dare threaten me? A piece of trash like you dares to threaten Karen Greaves? You will regret this, you son of a butch." She snatched her phone out, her fingers flying across the screen. In an instant, her voice shifted into a trembling, fake sob. "Hello, 911. Please help me. There's a strange man. He looks very aggressive and he might have a weapon. He's camping illegally and threatening my life at the lakeside shore. I'm a defenseless woman. I'm so scared. Please hurry." She hung up. She looked up at David, a venomous, triumphant smile spreading across her face. "The cops are on their way. You're done for. Kid, let's see how tough you are in handcuffs." David just stared back at her, his gaze unwavering and piercing. Then he slowly sat back down in his chair, calmly picked up his chicken leg, and took a huge bite. He chewed slowly, defiantly, as if he were savoring a gourmet meal, not facing down the police. "Okay, you wanted to play hardball, then let's play." He had come here seeking peace, but it seemed, first, he had to take out the trash. The wail of police sirens roared in the distance, the jarring sound Karen Greaves had been waiting for like a victory symphony. It tore through the night, echoing off the mountainsides, growing louder and more insistent. Flashing red and blue lights strobed wildly across the pine trees, turning David's peaceful campsite into a crime scene. The moment the patrol car screeched to a halt, Karen scrambled towards it like a moth to a flame, her face contorting into a mask of pain and fear, calculated to perfection. "Oh, thank God you're here. I thought I was going to die. That man..." She pointed a trembling finger at David. "He threatened me. He said I would regret it. He's so aggressive." Two officers stepped out. The older one, Sergeant Miller, had the weary but sharp eyes of a man who had seen too much nonsense. The younger one, Officer Reed, was the opposite, eager and seemingly convinced by Karen's performance. He immediately advanced on David, his hand resting instinctively on his firearm. "Get up! Hands on your head!" Reed commanded, his voice rigid. David slowly rose, not saying a word in protest, but his eyes never left Karen. He saw her smug, satisfied half-smile as she watched him being treated like a criminal. "Easy, Reed," Sergeant Miller said, his voice low. He gestured for his partner to stand down. His eyes professionally swept the campsite. No weapons, no signs of a struggle. Just a man who looked tired and whose dinner had been interrupted. It didn't match Karen's hysterical account. "Who are you?" Miller asked David, his tone even but authoritative. "David Marshall," he replied, his voice hoarse with suppressed anger. "And this is my land." "Lies!" Karen shrieked, cutting in. "He's lying to get out of it. Can't you see he's a trespasser? I, Karen Greaves, representing the Lakeside Vistas HOA, demand that you arrest him immediately. He's a danger to our entire community." Officer Reed, clearly influenced by Karen's certainty, turned to David. "Do you have any proof that this is your land right now?" "My proof is in my truck, under a pile of inheritance paperwork," David said. "But at the moment, I'm being treated like a felon on my own property." "See, he has nothing," Karen crowed. "Just empty words. Arrest him, cuff him. I want him prosecuted." She moved closer, almost whispering in Miller's ear, but loud enough for David to hear. "Sergeant, our community pays a lot of tax revenue to this county. We expect to be protected. Don't let some drifter jeopardize our good relationship." It was a naked threat, wrapped in a sugary coating. Miller's eyes narrowed. He despised this attitude. He looked back at David, who stood still, enduring the humiliation. But in his eyes, Miller saw the cold fire of resolve, not the fear of a guilty man. "All right, that's enough," Miller said, his voice now ice cold. "Mrs. Greaves, step back. Officer Reed, secure the scene. I'm calling the park ranger. We are not arresting or cuffing anyone until the property lines are clearly confirmed." Karen's face fell. "A ranger, why complicate things? Isn't my word good enough? In a civil dispute with potential criminal elements, your word is part of the investigation, not the final verdict," Miller retorted, pulling no punches. Just then, a kayak slid onto the shore. Mark, David's friend, jumped onto the grass, panting. "David, what the hell is going on? Why are the cops here?" "Just stay calm," David said, but his voice was as tight as a guitar string. Seconds later, headlights from a green pickup truck swept across all of them. The Park Service vehicle had arrived. A tall, rugged man in uniform stepped out. Ranger Jenkins, a living legend in this area who knew every tree and every rock. Jenkins walked over, nodded at Miller, and then looked straight at David. His eyes narrowed for a second, then widened in recognition. David Marshall, is that you? Son, haven't seen you in ages. You look just like your father, John." "Did at your age." The air suddenly froze. Karen was stunned into silence. Reed looked utterly confused. Only Miller gave a slight, knowing nod, as if he'd suspected something like this all along. David allowed himself a small, weary smile for the first time that night. "Hello, Mr. Jenkins. I just got back." The tables had turned. The victorious smirk on Karen's face vanished, replaced by a look of sheer panic. The Queen of the Lake had just realized her kingdom might be about to crumble. Was that the handshake between Ranger Jenkins and David was like a slap across Karen Greaves's face. Her perfect script shattered into a million pieces. Her carefully made-up face began to crack, revealing sheer panic. "Jenkins, you know this punk?" she stammered, the respectful "Mr." vanishing from her vocabulary. Jenkins let go of David's hand and turned to Karen, the friendly smile completely gone from his face. "Of course I know him, Karen. This is David Marshall, John Marshall's only son. The farm his family has owned since his great-grandfather's time wraps around nearly half this lake, including this very patch of dirt you've planted yourself on." Every word from Jenkins was like a stone thrown into the silence. Officer Reed looked like he'd just swallowed a bug. He glanced awkwardly at Sergeant Miller, who just gave a slight nod, his eyes saying, "See the idiocy of jumping to conclusions now. No, this is absurd. It's a setup." Karen shrieked, her voice now shrill with pure indignation. "The HOA has poured so much money into this place, we turned a wilderness into a paradise. We built that gazebo. It's ours, you're all in on it together to cheat me." David, who had silently endured the ridiculous charade, finally spoke. His voice was ice cold, devoid of emotion, but that very calmness carried a terrifying weight. "Officers, perhaps it's time for me to file a report, not about me trespassing, but about Mrs. Greaves and her so-called HOA blatantly seizing and vandalizing my family's private property for years." He walked to his truck, opened the door, and pulled out a thick binder. He said nothing more, simply unfurled a large surveyor's map onto the hood of the police car. A flashlight beam hit it, illuminating the officially stamped, red-inked boundary lines. "Here," David pointed to a bold line that snaked along the shoreline, encompassing the campsite, the lawn, and the exact spot where they were all standing. The Marshall Farm property line, established in 1923, it extends 15 meters inland from the high water mark. The entire paradise Mrs. Greaves was just bragging about is, in fact, my backyard. Ranger Jenkins crossed his arms, nodding. "That's 100% correct. This map matches the county records perfectly." Karen's face went pale, but her ingrained arrogance wouldn't let her back down. "It's just a piece of paper. Who knows if it's even real? I don't believe it. Our hard work can't be nullified by some dusty old document." "Then perhaps you'll believe these ways," David said, flipping to another page. This time, it wasn't documents, but a stack of crystal-clear color photographs. He spread them across the car hood like a poker player revealing a royal flush. June 2 years ago, the HOA summer barbecue. "On my land," he said, his voice flat. "October last year, a charity fundraiser. The trash they left behind. On my land. And this." He held up a close-up shot of the wooden gazebo. "Is an illegal structure. Nicely built, I'll admit, but unpermitted and erected on my land." He looked up, meeting Karen's eyes directly. "My father documented everything. He didn't want to cause trouble, but he wasn't a fool. He knew that one day your greed would go too far." "Lies, slander, you're framing me," Karen screamed, practically unhinged. "I made this place valuable. You should be thanking me. Without me, this would just be a swamp." Sergeant Miller stepped forward and placed a hand on Karen's shoulder, a gentle but firm, warning grip. "Ma'am, I think you've said more than enough. Right now, you have two choices. You can remain silent and cooperate with your investigation, or you can be placed in handcuffs right here for obstructing an officer and filing a false police report." A deafening silence fell. Even the crickets in the grass seemed to hold their breath. The beautiful gazebo that Karen had been so proud of now stood like a monument to her guilt under the harsh glare of the headlights. Karen looked from Miller's stern face to Jenkins's disappointed one, and finally, her gaze landed on David. He had already walked back to his campfire and calmly sat down in his chair. He didn't need to say another word. The truth was speaking for itself. Karen's arrogance finally shattered. She stood there, trembling, Not from the cold, but from the realization that she wasn't just wrong, she was about to face the legal consequences for her hubris. The queen had been dethroned in the very kingdom she had stolen, and the man who had overthrown her was now sitting there, about to enjoy his victory. Chicken. The moment Jenkins finished, Miller didn't turn to Karen. He spoke directly into the radio mic on his shoulder, his voice clipped, devoid of emotion. Dispatch. Confirm criminal investigation at this location. Subject is Karen Greaves, requesting a backup unit for transport. The statement detonated in the silence. Karen's jaw dropped. Transport criminal investigation. You can't. Miller ignored her. He jutted his chin at Reed. Officer, handle it. Reed stepped forward, pulling out his notepad and pen. He didn't look at Karen's face, staring at a point just over her shoulder as if she didn't exist. Mrs. Karen Greaves. His voice was flat, mechanical. You have the right to remain silent. Karen stumbled back a step, hitting a pine tree. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. She shook her head frantically, blonde strands breaking free from her elaborate updo. No, still. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney... At the word attorney, Karen's knees gave out. She collapsed to the ground. Not a graceful fall, but a complete, helpless crumple. A dull thud echoed. Silence. Officer Reed didn't even pause. Continuing to read the rest of the rights to the trembling heap at his feet, Miller glanced at the gazebo with contempt. Reed, crime scene photos. Tag that as Exhibit A. The planning office will want to see this. He turned to David. We'll be in touch. Then he and Jenkins turned and walked away. Leaving Reed to handle the mess, David said nothing. He just stood there, watching as Reed helped a now silent, weeping Karen to her feet. Dirt and leaves smeared all over her pink pantsuit. The second patrol car had arrived, its headlights illuminating her absolute defeat. When the two police cars finally rolled away, taking the queen turned prisoner with them, the night truly fell. David walked straight to the fire pit. He used a pair of tongs to pick up the burnt, cold chicken leg. Without hesitation, he tossed it deep into the flames. The fire roared, consuming it. He opened the cooler, pulled out a new piece of chicken. Threw it straight onto the grill, sizzle. He popped open a beer. Click. Mark came closer, his voice full of awe. Dude, you just ruined her life. David took a long swig of beer, his throat working. He set the can down, staring straight into the dancing fire. His eyes reflected the flames, cold and brutal. No, he said, I was just taking out the trash. So justice has been served, and the Queen of the Lake has paid the price for her arrogance. David's story is a reminder that truth and rightful ownership will always prevail. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment about the moment you felt most satisfied.